I'm not hearing you.
How about now? Can you hear me?
I got you. Everyone else got them? No, hold on, I lost you. Here we go.
Yep. No, I'm here. I can hear you, Ryan.
All right. All right, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm proud to introduce Gio Perez, an accomplished Army veteran and solutions engineer leader at Cisco. With over 25 years of Department of Defense global enterprise expertise, Gio has built and led high-performing teams across engineering, network design, cybersecurity, satellite and RF communications, information management, data security, missile defense, and risk management framework implementation. His expertise spans a full life cycle of complex initiatives from strategic architecture and compliance with the development and deployment of mission critical projects supporting global operations. So that is a mouthful. So all my cyber warriors and AI warriors and all you guys out there that are, that love this stuff, go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions or put it in chat and I will get it to you. And then Gio, before we start, I'm going to put your LinkedIn information in chat if that's okay.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Okay. There we go. Cool. All right. With that being said, can you tell us a little bit about what you did in the Army and like why you joined, like your background there?
Yeah, for sure, Brian. First off, thanks for having me. Appreciate everybody being on the call, just taking time out of your day also to be here, and just kind of listen to us and listen to our stories and see how we can assist you guys as you guys transition out and start the next chapter of your life. But yeah, for me, Ryan started off. I grew up in Chicago, and then I would say my goal was after high school was just to go off to college, like I think most folks try to do, and then plans changed. Recruiter kind of got me. It was not in my plan to join the military. He gave me his first sales pitch, I'll say, and I guess I like to joke around and say I fell for it, right? So next thing you know, signed my 4-year contract. Came in as a radio guy, so UHF, VHS, SHF in the Army. So started off enlisted, and then kind of worked my way up in my career to become a sergeant first class. I was a drill sergeant right around the 8-year mark, and that's when I was at E7. So I love that part of being a drill, right? Just I think giving back was the biggest part of it, right? It's a super rewarding job, tireless job, but rewarding job. And then I kind of realized at the same point, right, that was another time to see what I want to do in my career. I was getting looked at for E8, right at that time at 10 years. And then I realized, man, do I want to really do this for the next 10 years of my career? As I kind of sat in higher positions, but then I decided to transition to be a warrant officer. I wanted to remain technical in my job, so I changed over to be a warrant in same thing that I did in communications. So I went ahead and transitioned to be an engineer within the military for being a warrant officer. It was a 255 November was the MOS, and then I did that for the remainder of my career, transitioning from W1 all the way to CW4 until ultimately decided to retire. But yeah, within my career, just I would say a lot of tactical units is what I did. So I remained in a lot of tactical units. At one point, I was at Camp Airjohn running the regional hub node as well, which supported all of CENTCOM and the entire theater. And then also I went to some time in Space Command as well, and was in space and ran all the WISOCs, the wideband satellite operation centers over there. And then, like I said, right around the 25-year mark, I was deciding what was going on and decided to make that transition out of the Army.
That's awesome. What how many total years for did you have?
So it was just at 26. I was like a week away from being 26 years on active duty.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, when you retired, did you do it because you wanted to just your time was you're up, you were ready for it, or did you just want to go into the civilian sector? Like what was some of the reasons behind you?
Yeah, it was a mixture of stuff, right? I was going on a lot of missions, doing a lot of stuff. I love what I did, but then I needed to decide too. If I stayed in, then I'd be going for CW5. But then I knew that was gonna probably have another commitment of another 4 years. And then at that point, I'll say too, injuries take a toll on your body, different things. And then that's when I think I ultimately just made the decision to said, I don't know if I wanted to commit for another 4. Let me see what's out there in the civilian sector, right? And I think like anybody else, right? It's scary, I guess I would say, right? Not knowing what's out there. People will tell you, depending on what your job is, oh man, you're super marketable. You're gonna have a great career. You've been in tech. I had my certs, I had my degree, but people can tell you that all day long, but until you start talking to, I think, companies, start getting interviews, that's when I think things start becoming a little bit more realistic for you. And then you realize, like, okay, it's not as scary as I thought it was going to be. I can see my future right out of the military, and that transition, what that looks like.
Yeah, we're kind of similar. I did about 10 years enlisted, and then got commissioned and did an extra 20. And then it was just that time where loved what I was doing, but it was just, for me personally, it was just time to go and
Yep.
jump into the civilian side. You actually, because everyone on the call here is in their skill bridge, right? Skill bridging with Seven Eagle. You actually skill bridged with Cisco, right?
I did. So I did not know Cisco had a skill bridge. I was already talking to companies, right, like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, and I was doing different things. And then on LinkedIn, I just ended up finding it on, somebody's page, just researching like we do, and I found out that Cisco had an internship program. Wasn't sure what that consisted of, but I reached out, uh, found out a little bit more about it, submitted my application for it. But ultimately, it's called Missile, Military and Sales and Leadership, and it is pre-sales, right? A sales job, which I never saw myself doing, if I'm being honest with everybody, right? I went drill sergeant versus going recruiter for a reason. I didn't think I was that type of person to sell, and then all I thought I saw was used car salesman, right? Is what I was thinking. I was like, oh man, the people that we hate that are calling us or we go talk to, like, didn't think that's what I wanted to do. But I also wasn't sure. I think a lot of people ask you, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? That's the question. Like, kind of when you get out the art, when you get out the service, is what do you really want to do? And I don't think we always know that 100%, right? I managed networks, managed large networks, ran networks, built them from the ground up, but I didn't know if that's really what I wanted to do when I got out, right? So I went ahead and did the internship program, started learning more about it, realized one, how big the portfolio is within the company, right? I was route switch, security, wireless, data network, and all that stuff in my career. And then I got to Cisco and I was like, man, there's so much more that I don't know, even though I was considered a subject matter expert when I was in. So kind of took that by the horns, had to learn the portfolio. I started off in our service provider sector. So doing, supporting a big ISPs, but finding out that really what it's about is you have to know all the products. Because I was a portfolio engineer when I first started off, and it was knowing the entire portfolio of Cisco, but no one can really be an expert in the entire thing, right? You're gonna be really good in some areas, and you're gonna have some weaknesses. But that's why we also have certain other engineers that are experts in that area. So like I covered the portfolio, but there were other engineers that, like, your security engineer, your wireless engineer, your data center engineer, and then you can always go to them, since they are SMEs in that specific area. But it's about supporting the customer. It was about going out there. I was in public sector, so covering schools, government entities of that nature. And then, I looked at it like everybody has to buy something from somebody to make their company run, right? So it kind of goes back to, well, why not Cisco? So my job was, to go out into the field, talk to my customers. It was a set of customers that Cisco gave us, so it's not cold calling. Uh, Go over there, start building those relationships, and then start talking to them about why, our switches, right, are so good, or why our access points, are better than Aruba or somebody else. And just making sure that we're meeting them where they are, we're listening, and then ultimately, trying to close a sale, right? So it did still require a lot of whiteboarding, a lot of design, still building the networks out. So stuff that I knew how to do. But at the end of the day, I'm not responsible for who hits that enter command on that command prompt on that keyboard anymore, right? So that was the best part of the job, I thought, was not having to monitor a network, not having to get that late night phone call anymore when a network's down, but supporting the customers in other ways. So the missile program, our internship program was great. I did that for 3+ months. Like I said, until I ultimately got hired in Central Texas as an engineer, and I was there for just shy of about 3 years is where I did that job.
That's awesome. What would we have a question in chat about your email? Is it okay if I put your email that's on your LinkedIn profile in the chat?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There you go. Email is now in the chat. So that's awesome. So like what was the I guess what was the skill bridge experience like? Like you're going from the army, warrant officer, and now you're skill bridging. We don't like to really use the word interns, but you're kind of like interning with a new company. What was that like? That transition like?
So it was, I would say it was very good. It was kind of seamless, right? I think like, as I got out, prior to getting out, like most vets, um, people are already hopefully not working full days. They start kind of seeing what that looks like on their way out already by doing different things, reaching out to different people. So it was a remote job, but since I was in Texas and some of the customers I covered were there, I was able to kind of do a little bit of face to face, which I think is always good, right? Because not everybody gets that when they're doing internships. But really, more it was about the culture. I think, right? That's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of like going to corporate America, getting that transition, and then really being like, man, what is this like? Like, are they gonna accept me? Are people gonna be? Is everybody standoffish? Is everybody looking out for themselves and they just want the next promotion, right? They're not willing to help, and it wasn't like that at all. I'll tell you, the culture and diversity of the company and everybody was so quick to reach out, right? You would reach out to somebody for assistance, and I mean they're pinging you right back in WebEx really quick. And if they don't have the answer, they're sending you to the next guy that might. So that was the best part. Was it really did feel like, I would say, a warrant officer community, right? People like to say warrant officer mafia, and joke around about that, but it really felt that way because everybody was always willing to help, um, and help you out when what you didn't know, what you didn't know, and it is like that to this day, right? I'll say, right, that's the one thing I do love about the company is the culture, and I think, right, you just don't know that when you land somewhere of what that culture looks like within a company, and you're definitely not, I would say, a number here, right? It's people care, people are willing to help you out, people are willing to listen. And then the best part about it as well in the internship, right? It was about just getting out there, getting on calls, shadowing, learning the technologies, learning the skill sets within the engineer, and then learning the internal, I would say, systems of the company as well, right? So therefore, if you do transition from intern to hire, you already kind of have an edge, versus somebody that's coming in as an ultimate new hire to the company, because they would have to learn all that stuff that you learned in those previous 3 months, and that's what kind of helps, I think, as well in the internship, us getting those roles, because we do already have some of the experience within the company.
That's awesome. At what point did you know? At what point did you know that they were going to keep you on after your skill bridge was over? Did they they tell you at the end, or like how'd that work? Obviously, it
Yeah.
worked
So
out for you. So
the big thing I'll say, right, with our internship program is, we do tell people when they're coming in, right, it's not a guaranteed job, but we have, I would say, for engineers right now, we're at like a 95% rate of hire, right? So our rate to hire is super high, but it's all about networking, right? And I think people, I'm sure you guys talk about that within your internship, Brian, right? Everything is about networking, meeting individuals, networking through the company, um, and doing that, and then therefore the goal is yes to try to get hired on the team that you're interning if they have an open rec, but if not, you're doing your own networking within the company, meeting other managers, meeting other directors, meeting other people, and then hopefully if somebody has a rec, in another spot, then they already know your name. And then also, right, your current, I would say, boss in the intern program, he's willing to vouch for you, and talk. And I think that's how you grow it. And then ultimately, So for me, like I said, I was in service provider. they were trying to get a requisition open for me to get hired. So I kind of knew right around the 2 month mark. But at the same time, somebody that was on my interview panel for when I came in, that manager has have kept in touch with me. So we were talking, and he actually had a job opening come up. So he told me, he's like, "Hey, I want you to interview for this. I think you'd be a great candidate." So at that point, I was interviewing for about 2 to 3 positions, and I really wanted to remain on the service provider team just because, I grew a lot of contacts there. I thought the what we do in service providers is really cool. But at the end of it, right, you need a job. And it's like as great as they both were engineering jobs, it was just one was going to be on public sector team, one was going to be service provider. I was like, I'm going to go with the first person that makes me, that great offer that I'm looking for. And ultimately the other manager was the one who kind of, beat everybody to the punch. And I'll say he made me the offer first, right about 3 months in. So I was able to do what everybody wants, was start that role. I had my offer even prior to getting out, right? Because I think that's the goal for everyone is, while we're in the internship program or while we're on terminal leave, you're hoping you find that job prior to you getting out. So, you secure something, and everything just happened to line up. I would say all the stars lined up for me and it worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nick, go ahead.
First, thanks for coming on here. Really appreciate the insights on everything. I've always been a huge Cisco fan. They're very heavily trying to educate people just for the betterment of knowledge, and that really resonates with me. My question to you is, historically, Cisco's been like, they've owned like the pathways for the internet, right? They've kind of been, I guess, if you want to compare, it's like the plumbing of the internet. And in this new AI native world that we're landing into, what layer do you think Cisco intends to own with that? Are they going to be the connectivity piece, like identity policy, or more of like an orchestration field? Reason I'm asking is also like, where inside Cisco would somebody who's kind of focusing on AI governance, identity, and enterprise might have some leverage?
Yeah, awesome, Nick. Great question, right? So, kind of like you're saying, right? Cisco, I think at the heart of it in the beginning was a route switch company. We've kind of transitioned to a software company, I would say, as well. Um, but we're leaning in heavily on AI right now. AI is not only embedded within a ton of our tools now, but also within tools for the customers. So when you look at, I don't know how familiar you are, but like Catalyst Center, Meraki, security, a lot of different stuff that we now have AI assistants on there that'll help the customer troubleshoot what's going on and get to the root cause faster than somebody would do on their own. And then in data center, we have AI pods now that are helping out. So I mean, obviously, it's probably the GPUs that have that, so everybody can build out their own LLMs. But we're doing a ton on the data center side. We have smart routers, smart switches now that have AI embedded. So it's big. It's on the networking side, it's on the software side, but we're putting it in almost every tool that we have. So the company is leaning in huge. I think we're trying to get ahead of it. We were late to the game when it came to cloud years ago, but I think Cisco learned not to make that mistake. As far as opportunities go, right? I think depending on what you want to do, right? You could come in as an engineer, AI is all over it, you'll be talking about it all the time. Or from the governance side, like you said, we have a bunch of teams now that are building all this out right in the background for us and making and creating these tools for everybody to use. So there are a lot of AI teams, and there is a CAI team, which is strictly data center, that all they do really is talk about AI. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, and there's more to come, because I do see a lot of open recs that started coming out with more AI built in them, Nick. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
For sure. I appreciate you.
Got another question. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So for those who see an on-the-job training opportunity with Cisco to go through SkillBridge, what's the training usually like for that, particularly those who may not have an IT or engineering background?
Yeah, so if you're not, let's say IT engineering, we do bring in a ton of folks that, right, whether you were infantry, whether, we have guys that are SOCOM, we have guys that were just doing, transportation, different things, right? Not specifically IT, but typically they'll fall. We have product managers where we bring people in that pathway. We also have supply management chain, and then the ultimate one is our sales one, which are account managers, right? So as the account manager, that's where we see a lot of people landing, just because that's a great skill set that we see. It's a transition for veterans, because at the end of the day, what people are looking for is, right, somebody that's disciplined, somebody that can manage and run on their own. They don't need to be micromanaged. And then also having those soft skills, right? Knowing how to talk, communicate, and have that great energy and that great vibe. And then, like I said, as an account manager, it's exactly kind of what that is, right? You're the person that is managing those accounts. You're going in talking to the C-suite, right? So as long as in your career, right, you were comfortable talking to higher people in the chain of command, it's usually not an issue, right? Because we can put you in front of a CTO or a CIO and have that conversation about, hey, how can you help them better build up their company, their infrastructure, understand their pain points and stuff of that nature. And it's a duo. It's like in my previous role, I was the solution engineer and I was paired up with an account manager. So we would go out together. We had our own set of accounts already, and then I would do the technical talk, of course, right? And then that would, my business partner, I would say, and the account manager side did the more of the business acumen acquisition of it. And then when it came down to like, hey, this is the solution that we're going to sell, then the account manager deals with the numbers, right? What are the discounts that are looking like, how that's going to be, and the final numbers for the sale. But that is probably our best one, that transition to no IT experience, nothing at all. But I do want to get in pre-sales and be able to, talk to folks. And I feel like that's a good spot for me to land. That's our other pathway within the program that we see a lot of success in, Chris.
Cool. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
So what skills that you learned in the Army transitioned best when you went to Cisco, and then which ones like didn't, if any?
Yeah, I think I'll say one of the ones that I didn't think I would use much for, I guess I would say, is being empathetic, right? I think that's one that in the beginning, you have a lot of things, right? The discipline, of course, we know is something that's instilled in us from the beginning. But I think as I came up as a leader, and I was an NCO, I was definitely that strong knife hand NCO and drill sergeant. And then when I went warrant, I had to like kind of adjust my leadership style a little bit and change, realize like, hey, I wasn't that drill anymore. I wasn't that guy. So I had to kind of learn to adapt more. So I'll say like, I think being empathetic is a big one, because you have to learn to listen to people, right? Listen, understand them, see what's going on, understand that what's going on professionally, but also personally. Therefore, you know how to, communicate better and understand their needs. And I think that, as a leader, again, now and having people under me, right, that's a way to help motivate your team. You got to be able to understand your team and know, so that way everybody's willing and wants to work hard for you. So that was a skill that didn't think would be in huge in play, but definitely is a big one. And then I think listening is another one I think a lot of people take for granted, right? I think a lot of times we like to over communicate, talk too much. People cut people off, but I think if you sit back and you listen, a lot of times you learn a ton more, right? Because people are always willing to divulge information, or sometimes divulge too much. So just sit back, listen, be willing to take notes, and then you'll learn that you can a lot more about the individual, the company, and understand it. But I think everything that we do, right? We love veterans within our company, and it's really because of a lot of those skills and a lot of the soft skills that we've learned. And then especially as people usually in the military, right, can do a lot of things without management, right? It's, hey, here's a task, go knock it out, come back. And I think that in the military, we're so used to doing that when you come into a civilian role and you're tasked with stuff, it's just second nature to knock it out. And your manager will quickly see like, oh man, this guy just gets it done, and I think that's what a lot of people within the company really love about the vets.
Awesome. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, just real quick, again, appreciate you being on here. my question to you is, so as a practitioner, I think it's important to, if I'm going to be doing governance and compliance, I need to understand, what I'm trying to safeguard, right? So I've been doing a lot of open source things, like IDEs, Cursor, doing GitHub Actions, I would say
Awesome.
maybe playing around or just navigating the terrain, if you will. My question is, because CCNA became the gold standard for the networking infrastructure stuff. Not a huge networking guy myself, but what is the future? Would you consider gold standard for, like again, this new AI playing field that we're getting into? I have jumped onto your guys' Cisco training and kind of looked through your courses, which are really awesome. They're all free. Especially right now, I guess there's like some CEUs you can get if you go through some of your guys' courses, which is freaking awesome. What would you suggest somebody like me to kind of jump into right now?
With AI, I would say right with Cisco right now, like we're in the process of kind of redoing some, I would say, exams and stuff. There's definitely going to be an AI exam coming out, right? Something within the company. But a lot of stuff that we take into consideration right now with a lot of folks that are leaving heavy is NVIDIA has a couple really good certs out there on AI. So I would definitely look at NVIDIA site and take a look at their AI certifications, because that's one company that we've been weighing heavily on, just because we have a partnership with them with our Silicon One and our chips and stuff like that that goes into a lot of our equipment. So when it comes to specifically AI, you don't have to have your CCNA, I'll say, right? Because it's kind of going into a separate field. If you are trying to be just an engineer, I would say, like kind of like my previous role, and be portfolio, but then you want to have maybe a focus on it, then yes, having your CCNA is more of a requirement now, just because it's the fundamentals, right? So even though you're not going to be, you don't want to be a specialist in route switch wireless security, but you still got to have that base knowledge of understanding of how it all functions, right? On those different, the different layers of the, OSI model. But the focus of AI, I would say more look at NVIDIA, because that's one of the biggest companies that we're definitely looking at when we're hiring people.
Yeah, I was just meaning in comparison to, like, if you wanted the gold standard to be a network engineer, you needed a CCNA. I was kind of getting your take on what is the gold standard for AI, workflow automation kind of stuff, but I appreciate you.
Okay, Nick, thanks.
To keep in line with certifications, like what certifications that you earned in the Army, like transferred over to Cisco, and were there some that didn't, and did you have to keep I guess finding more certs to get while you're there?
Yeah, great question, Brett. I think I started off with the typical CompTIA certs. I think people that are understand networking that are on this call, right? CompTIA is usually, like a lot of people tell you, that's the baseline of getting your Security Plus, which kind of gets you in the door. They have Networking Plus, so I took those on early on in my career as fundamentals, right? So like if you're starting off and you want to be like a low level analyst or things of that nature, you got to typically have your Sec Plus because of the 8570 standards that are out there and different things, just to be able to work on a network. And then I kind of transitioned to Cisco certs, just because in the Army we do have like a Cisco University that kind of gives us some training. So then I went ahead and did my CCNA in the beginning. So I knocked that out first, then kind of went into CCNA security. So I took the security exam. CCNA wireless was, I think, my next one after that. So I knocked out those. And then a little bit after that, I jumped to my CCNP to take that. So now it's Encore. It's one exam, but back in the day it was 3 different exams to get your CCNP. So then I did that. And then, just continue to work on the network, right? A lot of it is, I think certifications definitely help, right? I like to tell people, right, a degree gets you looked at, and that gets your foot in the door. And that says, right, I started something, I accomplished it, I finished it. But certifications kind of take you to the next level. And then it becomes about experience, right? How much experience do you really have? What have you touched? What have you worked on? But we definitely highly take a look at individuals that have their certs. And then that kind of goes to, okay, what is it that that they've done. And there are people that we've hired, I'll say within the internship program as well, that, they weren't IT, but they've always liked to tinker and play around with things of that nature. So they kind of went ahead and got their certifications in a couple of different stuff. And then, of course, people always ask, right, does it hurt because I never really had the hands on a live network? But not really, because if you've built your own lab at home, if you've tinkered with it, if you've messed around with packet tracer or CML that we have, then you understand it. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to know. Do you understand it? And also, can you talk about it? And if you got in front of a customer, could you explain all that? And that makes people successful for sure.
Go ahead, Nick.
What's the timeline that you would expect somebody to go through for the OJT process or the internship program? So, for example, if somebody had a month left or 2 months, 30 days to 60 days, does it matter? Or is it like you go it depends on the situation type thing?
Yeah, I would say it depends on situation, Nick, but we definitely try to get people with, I would say, at least 3 months, right? 3 to 6 months is the target. I know that there's been a lot of changes within the SkillBridge programs, within the different branches of, I think, how many months they're giving everybody now by rank. I think that varies. So we take a lot of that into consideration depending on, where you fall under. But 3 months is about the time we want to get people. Have we gotten people in with 2 months? Yes. It's just, I would say it's harder, right? Because you come in with just 2 months prior to getting out, let's say, and trying to get you embedded. By the time you get in, you start networking. You really have to hustle if you're trying to get yourself a job prior to getting out within that 2 months. But 3 months seems to be the sweet window to really kind of be successful.
Jacob, go ahead.
So if you had to give a no BS going from nothing to starting to learn out, what order of priority would you do as far as gathering knowledge, like college, certs, and just like general knowledge? What order of priority would you say would be a good one for somebody just starting out in the networking side of things?
Okay, so basically you're saying you want to start off in networking, but currently today that is not your field, right? You want to kind of know, what does that path look like? Is that kind of it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like if I wanted to get hired in a month, what would be the first thing I should go after to try to get into it, and then it expands from there?
So, I mean, I think it depends on the company, right? I'll say. I think I kind of go back to what I think I mentioned earlier was CompTIA, right? A lot of people look at Security Plus as a very good entry level certification when you're trying to get into networking. It's just going to depend on, right, the job that you're looking for. But Sec Plus is probably the first baseline. Then if you are trying to focus on networking itself, then your CCNA, I would say, should be next. That holds a lot of weight with a ton of companies, even if it's not Cisco, just because a lot of industries see that as such a high level certification for for entry into that field. But if you don't have a degree, right, that's also tough, because I say, like, it depends on people. A lot of times when we screen resumes, right, I help out with the internship program. We screen resumes. If a lot of folks don't have degrees on there, they just get rolled out immediately, I'll say, right? And it's tough because you're in competition with your peers and other folks, right? So it kind of goes to, I think, when people tell you and you're getting looked at a board, and you're going up against your peers in that nature. Well, if they have degrees and they have this, or if they got scored this much on their fitness test or whatever, right, that always gets held higher than somebody else. And it's kind of the same thing in the civilian industry. Is like I said earlier, right, a degree is your foothold in, and then it's okay, well, what do you know? What can you do? What can you provide? But I would say at least start your degree if you don't have one, and go around that path while you're studying for certs. But get your Sec Plus, get your CCNA, and then I think that's a good foothold that typically people can accomplish that. I'll say, obviously, without the degree part. If they're go-getters within 6 months, I've seen people get their certification that were not IT related at all.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is Cisco brick and mortar, or do they have a lot of remote opportunities?
Ton of remote, Brian, I'll say, right? And reason is because we have a lot of specialists, as I mentioned earlier, doing we're a lot of software now. So really, since that's the case, right, we don't require those people that have to live in region and have to go see customers, because they get pulled into so many deals that it's remote. So even my job when I was a solution engineer, I'll say, and I supported Central Texas. So even though I supported Texas and that was my region, I was remote from the house. It was just I'd go visit customers when I wanted to, right? So it was on my schedule, my calendar, whatever I wanted to do. Then I would go in, but I worked from home, and then I've never worked in an office since being, and that's I would say the majority of our jobs are that way.
Nice. What does success look like for you now compared to when you were serving in the Army?
I think the biggest thing, right, I like to tell people is you got to be humble. I think when you're in the military and you're in, depending on your role, right? Especially like if you're a leader, you know what you got to do daily. You're in there, you're grinding. Obviously, different, you know, things within, obviously, while you're in, right, with different traits, but coming out, I think the biggest thing is humbling yourself. I tell people it doesn't matter whether you're getting out as a specialist or whether you're getting out as a colonel. To be honest, right? People within the civilian sector will respect of what you did in your military career. People will thank you. People will know, that you served our country, and like I said, that's I think the great part about it. But your rank, whatever you were, right, that's off your chest now. And you got to realize that you're coming into a new sector that you are unaware of, and it's different, territory. And then you got to realize that, you're the new guy, and just be humble, learn, ask questions, and everybody will treat you, with respect. And I think that goes a long way within the company, because you'll know kind of where you stand and maybe what that next role you want to have is, right? But then also having that drive of being successful in the position that you get hired on, and then maybe looking forward as to, hey, what's next? What do I want to do next? And coming up with that, 1 3 year 5 year plan of what you want to do within that company you're in. Or also, does that mean that you want to transition to another company within a couple of years? But I think those were the kind of like a lot of the biggest things, right? Is in the transition that kind of helped out.
So you've been kind of alluding to it, throughout your talk. What's it like working for Cisco?
It's great, and I'm not even making that up. I tell people that all the time, right? Is I think a lot of people blow smoke, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is the best company. This is awesome." But no, realistically, Brian, it's amazing. And like I said earlier, I think I talked about culture, and that's really it. That's what makes it for me. Is I don't think anybody, you want to love what you do at the end of the day. I guess that's the best way I can say it, right? And you don't know if that's going to be your first job, if you're going to love it, and it's okay if you don't, right? Find something else and maybe look at another company and transition. But what I learned when I came here, like I said, is just the slew of people that are willing to talk to you, help you out, build your network, chat, help you out with your daily work stuff, and anything. It's just you know, it, it's ridiculous on how much love, I guess I'll say, you get, right? And then when we get on these teams, everybody always talks about like, oh, my team is like a family and all that. And you hear that, you hear it a lot, but uh, it really was like when I left my last team in Central Texas, man, I'll tell you, I was sad. Like I was like, I love these people. Everybody was so cool to work with. They were so great. Um, you know, we became friends with a lot of them. And this is that you work remote, kind of like you said, you're remote. Yeah, we would meet. Cisco has their big sales kickoff in Vegas once a year. We do that, and you'll get with your team together every so often in person. But you really do build those relationship connections, and to me, that's the best part about working here. Right? Is that aspect of it. You know, once you get to a certain point in your career, like, and you're usually making pretty good money. People will say you get poached, right? Other companies are reaching out, and they're going to offer you, who knows, it could be 30% more than what you're making. But it's all about work-life balance is the way I look at it, right? Is that money that somebody else offering you, is it worth it? Because to me, it's not. Like, I make my own schedule, I make my own calendar. I I want to work 2 hours a day, I work 2 hours a day. If I want to work 15 hours a day, I work 15 hours a day, right? It's a matter of nobody's checking on me, and that's even me as a manager, even when I was doing just an engineer. Because at the end of the day, we have a number we have to meet, and the company doesn't care how you meet it. It's do what you need to do, manage your own schedule. And if I go to another company, another big name company, I'll say, and they offer me more money, from what I've heard from a lot of people, I'm just a number, right? I'm just a number. They don't care about me. They just care about me this, and I'll be grinding and I'll be working 15-hour days. And guess what? I retired, Brian. I don't want to work 15-hour days anymore. So, I'll stay somewhere else. But we also call those people boomerangs because we say they leave the company, they realize life ain't greener on the other side, and everybody's heard that before. And they'll be like, man, never mind, coming right back to Cisco, and they boomerang right back. So company is amazing. I know I said a lot, but it really is, Brian.
I love that. It's awesome. Chris, go ahead.
Hi, I just saw a question in the chat that I thought was important to ask so it doesn't get overlooked. Does Cisco offer on-the-job trainings for Seven Eagle, or does it have its own program?
So I mean, really, our OJT is our internship program, Chris, because it's when you're on, that's when you're kind of learning the role and doing that, right? So, like I said, if you're going engineer pathway, we're kind of getting you on track with everything in engineering and all the portfolio. If you're coming in through program management, then you're lined up in that program management field, learning the job. But it's our internship program is the only way to kind of get in and do OJT.
Thank you.
Yeah, good catch, Chris. Thanks for that. Go ahead. I'm not even going to try to butcher your name, but go ahead. I got you.
Hi, good morning. So I wanted to ask if your program had like a specific length date, because I know some SkillBridge or some programs have like a certain limit on the length.
The Are you, or can you explain that a little bit more? You said, like, what do you mean the length? Like how long the program, how long it has to be, or what do you mean?
Probably like a
Yes,
cohort is what you mean, like a cohort.
yes. Like
Okay.
more in the sense of like, is there like a minimum amount of time to join?
Yeah. So I think I spoke on that earlier, right? Really, we try to get people that have at least 3 months before getting out, minimum. Right. The more time you can give, the better. There's people that the program will finish, but then they have terminal leave, right? And they'll stay on the program while they're on terminal leave, just because, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to get a job, right? So we're not like some cohorts where it's a 3 month and you're done at the end of the 3 months and it's a see you later. We'll let you remain on as long as you want to, up until a certain point. We've even had people that have gotten out, but they came in the program and we kept them on for a month or two after they got out, just to continue to help them find a job, right? So that's one side of it on the time frame, and then the other one, somebody mentioned cohorts. We don't do cohorts. We take people in just all the time as they come. So that's why people submit applications on our site. So if you go to Cisco site and look up military and sales and leadership, you'll find it. And then, like I said, we're just constantly taking on folks depending on their time frame and their window of when it is that they're going to get out.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Mary, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Mary Carlson. I am currently an all-source analyst for the Air Force, and I was looking at some of the things you guys do because, like, everything in my shop says Cisco on it. And I saw cyber threat intelligence analyst. Is that something that you guys hire for frequently, or
Yeah.
have
So
like a pathway for?
for cyber threats, there's a lot of stuff that lines up, right? We have Talos. I don't know if you've heard of Talos, which is one of the biggest non-government organizations that literally daily we get every threat that's out there. So Talos is all cyber analysts, but then we also have like just cybersecurity. If you're going down that realm as well, within our entire security portfolio, which would be right talking about threats, everything, but you're also talking about firewalls, and all that stuff as well, right? On how to secure, networks, right? So there's a couple different areas I think you can go into with that within the cyber realm for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any emerging technologies that you're excited about that's coming down the pike?
For me, I mean, I think I just, going back to AI, right? It's coming in all our tools now. It's big. Um, I'm more now what I do. I have our industrial portfolio. So, with Cisco, right, we have so many different things, but our industrial line. So anybody here that's ever worked with those small aperture kits that, DTech, Packstar makes, all that stuff, that's what I do now. So I'm more portfolio focused. So we have a lot of cool things coming out, but also just more of our products are going into being able to be managed in the cloud, which is great, Brian, right? Because I think a lot of customers, depending on what it is, right, we always ask, they do a lot of stuff. We call it on premise, meaning in facility, managing everything. But obviously, a lot of people want to go to the cloud and they want to be able to manage everything in the cloud. And that wasn't possible with a lot of our devices in the past. And we're doing a lot more with that now, to where people can manage catalyst switches and all that stuff within our cloud Meraki dashboard based, and even in our industrial portfolio. That's where it's going now as well, to be able to help manage that, I would say virtually and in the cloud. So I think that's exciting stuff right now, is just the changes that we're making in the company.
Now, you talked earlier about when you got into the skill bridge with Cisco, how you were building your network while in there, which was awesome. Like, prior to getting out, like, how did you build your network and did it help you when you found Cisco as a skill bridge opportunity?
Yeah, so I'll say, Brian, I did not do a good job of building my network on my way out. Right, since it all kind of happened rapidly for me, by the time I got out, I wasn't really reaching out to a lot of people. Which obviously my suggestion to everyone is definitely, reach out to folks of whatever you're interested in within that company, right? I mean, you start off on LinkedIn, ask for, some time to chat with that individual, and then my ask is I always tell people prior to that call ending, ask them, hey, is there somebody else that you can put me in contact with, that can help me out, right? And that's kind of how you grow your network. Always ask for 1 to 2 more people you can talk to, get their names, and then reach out to them. And then you kind of start just expanding and building your network from there. And definitely do that now prior to getting out, right? I didn't. So I did it once I got into the program. And then I was reaching out to, a lot of people within the organization. Because once you're in, you get access to, you're basically like a red badge is what I call it, is you're just not a paid employee, but you get access to everything within the company. So you can see everybody's names, everybody's titles, and then you just start chatting and then you start talking with folks, Brian. But yeah, building a network's huge. And then, if there's somebody that really is interested in what you like doing, is, find those mentors, right? Just kind of like you had mentors while you were in service, look for somebody to help mentor you, while you're either transitioning, or if you find a mentor within whatever company you land. But mentors are huge, and then sponsors, I say, right? And the difference is, a lot of people ask, what's the difference, right? Having a sponsor is somebody that's more or less, they're going to talk about you when you're not in the room, right? And that's what you want. And that's how people get to know you, your name, transitions across. And then when other positions become available, then typically that's where, people will know who you are. And sometimes you have managers that'll reach out to you, based on that. And I think that's ultimately where you want to be. You want people to know your name, know what you do, and then you want to have jobs come to you versus, you looking for those jobs.
Yeah, we have that a lot on here. We had someone from the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, on, and she was just cold calling, the Eagles, saying like, "Hey, I'm here, I'm doing this, I want a job," and eventually she landed a job, and um, you know, still working. Well, she's getting ready to transfer, but still working there today. So
Nice. That's awesome.
I'll open it up to anybody else who has any more questions, and then I'll give Gio some parting words here. Any other questions? comments? Nick, I knew you were coming back. Go for it.
I can't. Yeah, I got a Cisco online. I got to talk now. No. So the best way to reach out to you, would it be the email or would it be through LinkedIn? And is there like a way we get on your calendar, kind of get some mentorship type stuff from you? Is that
Yeah,
possible
for sure.
or
I would
no?
say probably LinkedIn, Nick, is better for the message, right? Because sometimes an email it gets filtered in with all the junk. So try to hit me on LinkedIn for most folks, and then obviously, right, just hey, say hey, Gio, you run the Eagle, 7 Eagle call, whatever, and then if you just want to chat, want some advice, that's fine. If you want to actually get on a call and talk about stuff, then yeah, we can talk about calendars, and then I'll send out, basically an invite and we'll get on the call and kind of talk about what it is that it is and once again guys, it doesn't have to be IT related, right? If you just want to talk about, hey, what was that transition process looking like, this is what I'm doing, am I doing this correctly, what can I do better, things like that as well, I'm willing to help out. So I say that with I help out within our internship program today, right? I came in through, but now I'm on the board as well. So I know everything that's going on within our program. And it's all about giving back for me, right? To the community. And then, same time now, right? I'm a manager, so I'm hiring folks. So I see all the do's and don'ts that people need to be doing, or people are doing wrong, I'll say, during interviews and even throughout the process. So more than willing to talk about what that looks like as well.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it from the man himself. If you're interested in Cisco, I dropped his email and LinkedIn back in the chat. So reach out. All right, Gio. Hey, I really appreciate your time. This was an awesome session.